both these teams, I believe. In the competition, they'll be quite happy to pick up as many bonus points, that draw point from this game, and see where it takes them into the last couple of rounds before the blast.
Yeah, I think that just makes sense, doesn't it? I mean, Lancashire and Northamptonshire Lancashire and Yorkshire in the top two. For Northamptonshire, I don't think it's a game that they could come into this and lose, really. No. So I think a draw for Northamptonshire. And if they could pick up a couple of bowling points on the way, happy days. Lancashire want to try and get a couple of batting points to edge a little bit ahead of Yorkshire, ahead of the game next week. That kind of makes a bit of sense, doesn't it, for both sides?
Yeah.
It'll be Gareth Berg with Luke Wells on nought and 3 slips in place. And runs here for Wells. Actually just eased away off his hip. Into a backward square leg for a single. Picked up by Ben Sanderson. So Wells moves to 1. And Lancashire move on to 76 for 1.
I think also the teams they'll be looking around this evening, because there may be a couple of games that's had a bit more play than others. A couple of games are a bit further advanced, so maybe they'll just have a look and think, last 2 rounds of the season, if we do need to try and push something on or have an agreement where we'll set a game up which is more highly contested towards the end to try and get a positive result, then they can do.
Do you think we're likely to see that then as this group stage progresses? Do you think we might actually see, as Burr comes in and bowls to Davis, who plays a forward defensive to extra cover, there's no run. A lot's been said about the quality of the pitches so far this season, and 8 points for a draw perhaps a reason behind that. But do you think we might see a little bit more, I don't know, sporting wickets as the group stage goes on?
I don't see why not. Yeah, I think for home advantage as well, you've got that opportunity as long as it's within the laws and within the levels and decency of preparing a wicket, to prepare a wicket that's more beneficial to your side.
Berg to Davis, clipped up to mid-on, but there is no run. 76 for 1.
You certainly won't be preparing a wicket that sort of takes the competition out of it or puts you on the back foot before you've even started. So, I mean, flatter pitches, yes, I think we've seen some big scores, especially I think what was maybe a little bit more uncharacteristic of the English season with the scores that were put on the board in the first couple of rounds of the county championship. There were some really high-scoring games.
It's quite a dry April, wasn't it? It was. There's a lot of runs to be scored for batsmen in April, unusually. Davis just hopping back to defend this next delivery from Berg. Played up to mid-on again. Luke Proctor fields for Northamptonshire. There's no run. 76 for 1 then. Davis on 45, looking for a 5th half-century of the season. Sorry, he's fourth 50 of the season. He's had 3 so far. There's Berg to Davis, just trying to cut the ball, or maybe run it down to third man, but in the end, playing the miss and through to Adam Rossington. There's no run.
Has Davis converted any of those 50s yet?
Not yet this season. This year? No. I was thinking that this morning, if we do get on, I've spoken to him a couple of times after he's got 50 or got a 60 and got out, and he's like, well, I've done all right, but I want to go on. I want to get a big score. Yeah. I wonder if he's thinking to himself today, well,
it's a great opportunity today, isn't it?
Yeah. 45 at the minute. Burr comes in and balls to him. He just presses forward. Little defensive push, and the ball bounces up towards mid-off, and there's no run. That completes the over. And Lancashire is 76 for 1. Davis on 45 and Luke Wells on 1.
I'd have thought maybe that's what he doesn't need to think about as well. I've got to convert one of these 50s. I need to get 100. I'll have scored 4 or 5 50s and not converted one. But it might be just getting to 60, then to 70, and trying to go up in 10s or setting smaller targets, chunking it down, especially on a day like today when there isn't really a great deal riding on it apart from a few points.
It's going to be Ben Sanderson, who's going to bowl again from this pavilion end. He's going to be bowling round the wicket to the left-handed Wells, 3 slips in place. Sad, of course, with this being the first round of matches where spectators are allowed. We had about pushing 500 on the first day. But looking around the ground at the moment, not surprisingly, I think you could probably count them on fingers of 4 hands, maybe. Here's Sanderson round the wicket, bowls to Wells and plays that down to backward point, where it's fielded by Ben Curran, and there's no run. Yeah, some of them have been very, very patient. We've been sitting here since 11 o'clock this morning, or indeed probably a bit before that. I suppose if there's people that you haven't seen for best part of 20 months since spectators were last in the ground in September 2019, it's nice to catch up, socially distanced, of course. Here's Sanderson in again and bowls, and Wells nicely in behind that, pushes it up towards mid-off, where it's fielded by Rob Keogh, and there's no run.
Well, there was much debate whether some of those few crowd in there down near the change rooms were there to heckle the umpires.
Yes, it's true, because the umpires, up until the end of the previous match, at the start of this one, the umpires were actually changing, and the match referee were based in the Spencer Pavilion down to our right. For this match, well, that's being used for spectators. They're back up in the new pavilion. Sanderson in again, outside the off stump this time, and Wells lets it go through to Rossington, and there's no run. Yes, this time they're back in the new pavilion down to our left, and there's a little phalanx of supporters down below, and we thought they were like a sort of a lynch mob at one stage if they didn't like what the umpires announced. But it's all been very, very amicable, especially Rob Bailey, of course, well known in these parts. He played for Northamptonshire for many years, captain the county as well. Sanderson in, bowls and beats Luke Wells. Wells had a bit of a sticky start last night, didn't he? He came in after the fall of Keaton Jennings, and he had that bouncer from Gareth Berg, which he didn't play particularly well. And we were discussing on commentary at the time whether it was a question of it just being not quite as short as he thought it was, or whether he just lost it.
It looked like he misjudged the line on that one. He was going through mid-wicket, and that's beating him outside the off-stump.
So, testing little time for Luke Wells. He's got to play himself in again, of course. Here's Sanderson in, round the wicket too. That's a lovely shot. That'll make him feel better. Straight drive down the ground, back past the bowler, running down towards the boundary. In front of us, chased by Rob Keogh, but he can't pick it up, even though the outfield's had a lot of rain on it. It's still fairly quick, and it runs away for 4. And that, as I say, will make Luke Wells feel a lot better, I'm sure. He goes up to 5, and Lancashire up to 80 for 1.
He played a couple of games actually for Lancashire since he arrived to the club in the winter. He's got he's got a 45 in his first game against Kent, and then a 28 and 12 against Sussex, and in the last game against Glamorgan he made 30.
Well, good chance for him here to stake a claim. Sanderson round the wicket to him, and again he lets that go through outside the off stump. Comes in on the angle, and Rossington finishes up taking it around the line of leg stump. But end of the over, 5 to Wells, 45 to Davis. And Lancashire 80 for 1 on a cloudy afternoon at Wantage Road. If you're just joining us, you're very welcome. Play started at 1:30. We have potentially 67 overs left in the day. So that's 65 more. I'm quite sure I think there's a problem with the public address, which has been making all manner of rather curious noises this morning. Let's hope we can go through the rest of the afternoon without too much of that. It's not good for my blood pressure.
I'll be honest with you, at one stage it sounded like someone was breaking wind. It was it's like I didn't quite know where to look this morning. Here's Berg to Davis. It's left and through to the keeper, and there's no run.
There was one rather comical moment this morning during one of the umpires' inspections when I think somebody left the microphone on.
Oh no!
And there was a bit of a conversation going on, and
no.
we were just hoping that nobody was going to say, until they realised and turned it off, oh God, the umpires, crikey, when are they going to get us out there or something? And fortunately not.
Oh dear. Berg again, and Davis defends, and there is no run. Pushed out into the offside. So 80 for 1. Davis has 45 and Wells on 5.
I think it's these two, the Lancashire batsmen here, they've really got to set themselves up straight. I just commented then on Wells going through the leg side to a ball that was outside off stump. Sanderson and Berg, they're both very accurate bowlers, stump to stump bowlers.
Berg back into Davis, and ball straight. Davis has to defend the top of off stump and just push it back down the ground, no run.
they might just have to be patient here. And what I've seen so far of the Northamptonshire bowlers this season, these two have been their best bowlers, and purely because they've been so accurate and asked so many questions of the batsman all the time. They do ask you a question every ball, challenging you for a defensive shot. As soon as they've tired, then that's probably where you might get a little bit of loose delivery.
3 slips, point, cover, mid-off, mid-on, mid-wicket, and fine leg. It's come off a shoulder of the bat from Davis. It's run down towards third man. Kerrigan's after it. Davis has come back and has got 2 to his total.
Bit of bounce there, wasn't it? What do you two? I mean, there's only how many overs have there been? 32 overs after this. So, what would you say, looking at the wicket? Is there anything that stood out? Because this is the first couple of overs I've seen of the game on the actual pitch live. What would you say the wicket? Would you say it's a decent pitch? Has it shown much? Have you seen enough to know what it might be playing like?
It's nibbled a little bit, I think, throughout, isn't it? It's fair to say, Scott. I think the cricket we have seen.
To Davis, left and through to the keeper, no run.
It's certainly a very different type of surface, very different colour to the match that the pitch that we saw for the Sussex match, which was the previous home game here, when obviously Sussex were 25 for 7 on the first morning. It was a very, very good toss for Adam Rossington to win. It's nothing like that. It's a more, I would say, it's a more typical Northampton pitch. There's a little bit of bounce in it, a little bit of nibble with the new ball, but once the hardness goes off the ball.
Here's Berg again to Davis. It's left. Completes the over. 82 for 1.
And it's one of those that you could see just getting. I mean, it's not going to be an issue in this one, obviously, because we've only got this afternoon left. But you could see it getting just sort of lower and flatter, basically, and easier to bat on. I think it is. I mean, it's interesting. It is the 4th match in a row in the Championship where Adam Rossington's won the toss and on each occasion has put the opposition in.
Yeah.
So that seems to be the thought. I think it's a bit of a truism here at Northampton that if it's going to do anything, it tends to do it in the first session. First session and a bit maybe.
Maybe Northamptonshire thinking that the result against Glamorgan when they were set something and they knocked them off.
Yeah.
Maybe that would be the case this game.
3 slips in place as Sanderson starts a fresh over round the wicket to Luke Wells, who
It's
lets
gone
that
through
go through. It has,
Sorry, it's gone through nicely though, hasn't it?
Yeah, there was a couple that went yesterday, and again, it was almost invariably, as it has been this season, from the far end, from the Lynn Wilson Indoor Centre end. The odd one has just bounced a little bit. Gareth Berg got a couple to go through yesterday, and yet on the first morning, when we had that 70-minute session before it rained, he bowled one that almost grubbed, which was just very strange.
Yeah.
Sanderson in again, bowls to Wells, who's nicely in behind that, plays that up to mid-off, fielded by Rob Keogh, and there's no run. But I think, Ben, you've seen quite a lot of the home cricket this season. It does seem as though if there's any bounce to be found, it tends to be from the other end, from the indoor centre end. This year it's just gone through a little bit more, maybe.
Yeah.
Coming over, well, it sounds like a fusillade of shots. I don't think it is. It's the public address system again. Round the wicket goes Sanderson, wide outside the off stump, and Wells thought about maybe throwing the hands at it, thought better of it, lets it go through to Adam Rossington, and there's no run. The slightly irritating news is that I fear there's coming over rather grey and overcast over to our left, which is where the weather's coming from. Please, it's hope against hope that we're not going to get any more rain.
I thought the radar was pretty clear
The radar's,
later on.
yeah, the radar's, yeah, it is. There's just a few little scattered showers around.
Right.
I just hope we miss them. Sanderson in again, bowled, and that's driven nicely by Wells, but an excellent bit of fielding at mid-off by Rob Keogh, who, for once, I think, I'm not sure if he's actually got his hand warmer. It's been almost a feature of this season that Rob Keogh is usually to be seen shaking his hand warmer as though he's shaking maracas at second slip or wherever he happens to be fielding, but I don't think he's actually got that in. He's just settling on blowing on his hands today. Perhaps they've run out of hand warmers. Here's Sanderson in again, bowls to Wells, turns that nicely away through the onside this time, going out through mid-wicket, heading out towards the boundary, and Simon Kerrigan in hot pursuit, pulls it in around about 10 yards in from the boundary, and they come through for an easy 2, so 2 more to Luke Wells, who goes up to 7, and Lancashire to 84 for 1. Maybe the pros shop. They seem to have raided every golf pro shop in Northamptonshire, I think, to get as many as they needed for that rather chilly April. interesting. You're talking about the whole format, which we'll perhaps come back to in a second as Sanderson bowls that. And once again, it's on the leg stump and it's played up to mid-wicket by Wells. Once again, Kerrigan Fields, end of the over, 7 to Wells, 47 to Davis, 84 for 1 Lancashire. We're saying about, obviously, there's 2 more rounds of championship matches, and then we get the T20. And then in the middle of the T20, we get the last 2 rounds of championship matches. I just wonder, Ben, you know, from a player's point of view, it's not going to be easy, is it? Especially for those that are playing red ball and white ball to keep swapping backwards and forwards and adapting, and it's not an easy thing.
No, and the format has changed, not dramatically, but over the years it hasn't always been the same format, has it? It's been chunked into whole competition and then split.
There's Berg running in towards us, bowling to Davis, who defends back down the pitch. Gathered by Berg, no run.
Well, I think if you're one of those players that do play both formats, it is actually quite. I can remember doing that, and it is actually quite nice. The county championship campaign is a long campaign. If you're playing every 4-day game, it's a long season. It's actually quite nice to have a break in it. Play something a little bit more I'd call light-hearted, less on the body.
It's Berg bowling over the wicket to Davis, who's pushing to mid-off for no run.
And just basically having a bit of it's more of a change rather than a break. And then getting back into county cricket and just readdressing that. The element of, I suppose, the tactical awareness and your mental sort of state of mind more than technique comes into that, the change of formats, rather than how well you're hitting the ball.
Berg with the wind blowing, bowling to Davis. It's left through to the keeper, no run.
And I think there's some players out there that might have, they could potentially have struggled through the first part of the county championship campaign. They go into the blast, free up a little bit, play some white ball cricket, get some runs under their belt, run in, get through their action, get their Yorkers in, run around in the field, half days of work type thing and training days. Go back into the county season at the back end of the summer or in between the blast and carry that form on with them.
Berg for Northants. Davis leaves again. Through to Rossington, no run. Be interesting to look at the numbers, because I don't know what you think about this, Andrew, but watching it over the course of the last 6-7 years, that kind of switch back from T20 back to 4-day cricket. The first round of fixtures on the back of a block of T20 used to see sides skittled out because batsmen weren't. I just don't think you get that as much now. I think batsmen and players are more able to adapt to it and revert back to a kind of the 4-day game, even after a block of T20.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. It's being able to adapt, and they've done it maybe for more than 1, 2, 3 years now. Some of these players, they're probably getting used to it.
Just a bit peculiar, though, isn't it, to break and have those 2 extra competitions. Berg's trying to set off, but I think the wind is so strong.
It's really very, very, very gusty. I think there's obviously a shower nearby. We've just caught the edge of it, and it's very, very windy. Sort of turning round or running in sideways.
Giving the shoulder charge, isn't he, to Davis, who's it'll push up to mid-off again. Wells wants a single, but Davis sends him back, and there's no run. He was almost going shaping up to push with his shoulder into the headwind.
It
did look like he was just leaning into the breeze, and it was holding him up.
Just reminded me of older listeners may remember John Price, Sport Price. He used to bowl for Middlesex with that long curving run up, and he used to start off with that sort of dip of the shoulder running in. Just put me in mind of him for a moment.
Slightly more orthodox approach this time from Berg to Davis. He's driving and beating the man at cover and getting himself 4 runs, and that'll bring him up a 50. His 4th of the season for Alex Davis. Muted celebrations, just a shake of the hand with his batting partner Luke Wells and the acknowledgement of his teammates. But he'll be determined to try and go on and get more. But 51 not out, and Lancashire 88 for 1.
Yeah, well, from what we've seen, the small amount of cricket today, he's looked in good touch. Davis, he's definitely got himself into the balls, looking to get forward. I'd say with his stature, he's probably I've seen him play a little bit before, previously. He's always been very, very dominant square of the wicket. Puller and cutter against spin as well, sweeps well and uses his feet well. But he's actually looked as though in this innings here, he's really looked to try and dominate on the front foot and get right into these two, which, to be fair, these two bowlers, Sanderson and Berg, they do bowl full of a length along the wicket, giving themselves a chance for the ball to do as much as possible anyway.
Well, that's Davis's third championship innings against Northamptonshire this season. 57, 36 and now 51 not out. Round the wicket comes Ben Sanderson, bowls to his partner Luke Wells. He plays that up towards mid-on where it's fielded by Wayne Parnell and there's no run. You can see there's probably some rain, I think, heading round the ground to the north. Now, hopefully, we won't catch much, if any, of it. The danger, the risk of sounding like a cracked record from yesterday, that as soon as we get any water on this ground, Sanderson round the wicket again, bowls to Wells, pushes it up on the offside, Zabe fields, and there's no run. I just think it is so wet out there, and the umpires were making that clear when they were doing their various inspections, that it really isn't going to take very much water on it, and they're going to be thinking, well, we can't really go back out. But as I say, I think it's just sort of the odd shower forecast, at least for this part of the afternoon. Here's Sanderson, in again, bowls outside the off stump, and Wells shoulders arms, lets it go through to Adam Rossington, and there's no run. But there is certainly some around, I think, over to the north, as we look out towards Leicester, really.
It's quite gloomy now as
It
well,
is.
isn't it?
The light, and they're bringing the covers on. Yeah. Oh dear. Yeah, it is. We think we've just caught the edge of this shower, and unfortunately the ground staff, who've had an extremely busy 4 days, are going to be back in action again, bringing the covers on, and the umpires taking out the stumps, hopefully just in readiness for the covers coming on. So unfortunately we're off again with Lancashire 88 for 1. Alex Davis has made 51 of those, Luke Wells on 7. My gut feeling is that this isn't going to be a long delay. The hope is that, as I say, we don't get enough rain on it, particularly those areas down towards the east side of the square. If you think towards the square down towards the main scoreboard, that was where a lot of the attention was being centred, I think, during the inspections. Just that couple of old strips down there, and the ends have been getting very wet and just a bit boggy. The moment, it's just the covers coming onto the pitch that they're playing on. There's no sign of the tarpaulins coming on yet, the side sheets. But I fear at the moment we're going to be off at least for a few minutes. So we'll let you go off and make a cup of tea. We'll probably do likewise, and hope against hope that in a few minutes' time we're going to be back on. So for now, from me, from Scott, and from Ben, it's goodbye. And hopefully we'll be back on soon.